The Bucs are going with Washington wide receiver
Jalen McMillan,
a player that we've talked about on the podcast before. Obviously played with a very talented group over at Washington, led by Rome Odunze. McMillan had some injury issues, if I remember, that kind of plagued him during his time at Washington. But when healthy, obviously can do a lot for the Buccaneers. He understands how to win. These are some of the pros about him based off of PFF. Understands how to win with leverage and by attacking blind spots. A really good feel for finding soft spots against zone coverage.
He's a slot guy.
Slot guy.
This is a player that's 6'1", 197. The Buccaneers did have a formal interview with him. He was on their radar. He's bigger than, say, a Malik Washington. He knows how to get open. He's kind of a crafty guy. Reminds me a little bit of Chris Godwin, and I think you're going to hear that a little bit. He wins in kind of a crafty way.
Yeah,
good
he's
hands.
A nuanced route runner.
Yeah,
is the way to describe him.
Yeah, and
the Bucs Husky. Keep their Washington pipeline going. Yet another Husky, as Adam Slavon pointed out. They keep going with Washington players. The streak is alive.
Yep. So this is a really kind of a triumphant day here for the Buccaneers, especially in the third round. This is a very good pick. Jalen McMillan is a dynamite receiver. He is going to contend for that third wide receiver spot. Trey Palmer, you better wake up pissed every day.
You better be pissed off now. I know he wakes up pissed off. He's probably pissed off tonight.
Yeah.
And to your point about him helping out in the slot, in 11 games played last year for Jalen McMillan, on 259 pass snaps, he was in the slot for 231 of those snaps, with 15 lined out wide. So he is going to be a guy that lines up in the slot for the Buccaneers. Interesting, because we've talked a lot about Chris Godwin potentially moving into the slot. That's not to say that he won't on certain plays. But it was important that the Bucs grabbed another wide receiver and a player that can kind of fit this offense that Tampa Bay is running this year under Liam Cohen. His best game graded by Pro Football Focus was against Oregon, got an 81.1 grade there. So at least against better competition, he played his best. And again, used to playing with guys that are going to be the breadwinner in the offense. With obviously with Polk and Odunze, with Washington, and with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin with the Bucs.
And the thing too about Polk, he emerged last year as the number 2 because McMillan was hurt. McMillan was the number 2 to Odunze. In 2022, he had 79 catches for 1,098 yards, a 14-yard average, and 9 touchdowns. And then this past season, injuries caused his production to drop a little bit. We saw the emergence of Jalen Polk.
Yep.
He kind of became that de facto number 3, but he has had plenty of opportunities to catch passes from Michael Penix. And as you mentioned, 45 catches, 559 yards, 12.4-yard average, 5 touchdowns for Jalen McMillan, who again was a formal visit for the Buccaneers. And he was in the mix. He was there with Malik Washington, with Keon Coleman, with Jalen Polk. We have to make a selection. We got to pick
you can
a
only
guy.
choose one. That's we'd be cheating the system. By the way, his best season was in 2022. He scored 9 touchdowns that year, had 79 receptions. I think it's no surprise that's where he played the most games as well. Played in 13 games that year in 2022. Again, so many snaps in the slot, 459 in the slot on 496 total passing snaps that season. 79 catches on 118 targets, got over 1,000 yards. Excuse me. I'm just so excited about this pick. 1,098 receiving yards, and averaged 13.9 with 9 touchdowns, like I said. So his best year was in 2022 when he was the healthiest, playing in 13 games. Didn't have a crazy drop-off. I mean, obviously the touchdowns and the yards dropped off a little bit, but his PFF grade that year was 70.3 last season, where it was 77.5 in 2022. So we got Josh Capo with us now. Josh, your initial thoughts about Jalen McMillan
Yeah.
joining the Buccaneers.
So yeah, I just kind of tweeted this out. He was, I think, 62nd on my big board. So to get him at 92 is like a full round worth of value. So I like that. He wins intermediate to deep. So he's got legit speed. He is a threat at the second and the third level. The Washington also used him on a lot of bubble screens. He was primarily a slot receiver for them, and the Bucs are going to run a lot of 11 personnel. What'll be interesting is the Bucs have talked about putting Chris Godwin back into the slot. McMillan isn't a guy I would see on the outside a lot.
Barely played it at Washington.
Yeah, and what's really going to be interesting about that is Washington's offense created a lot of opportunities for him to get open in zone. It's not going to be as easy at the NFL level, and I would say one of the things that he's going to have to get better at if he's going to succeed as a slot receiver is his functional play strength. I think a lot of people here know that I was a big fan of Jalen Polk because he's the guy who can go over the middle. He's going to make tough contested catches. He's going to play through contact. None of that is Jalen McMillan's game. And so that is going to be something that he's going to have to work at, but he can threaten deep. He's got a lot of subtlety in his route running, which allows him to win late in the route. Little head fakes and shoulder twists to get defenders turning in the wrong direction. And then boom, he is gone. So that's something to really like about his game. I think he's going to pair well with Chris Godwin and with Mike Evans. I think there's actually a lot of similarities between him and Trey Palmer in terms of how they win deep downfield. I think it's a good pick. I think that the Bucs needed to add something to their wide receiver depth. I think McMillan definitely does that for them.